The rush for knowledge is a river of light against the dark of ignorance. We dream that knowledge will lead us to all things good, that it will build us a vast city of light where wisdom and understanding rule supreme. It's a splendid fantasy, this city of the future. But we live in the here and now with its stresses and pains and problems. Your problems are probably much like mine. I have a family, a home, a car, and I work to pay my bills, and sometimes I have to work just to find time for myself. Up to this point, we've looked at psychology as a science, a course of study. But this is our final program, and we're going to see how the science of the human mind applies to reality. To deal with an event as huge as life, psychology has to address all sides of the human being. It begins here in the brain. This unique journey through the regions of an actual brain should remind you that its 15 billion nerve cells give us our moods, our thoughts, our emotions, and all our problems as well. So psychology on the biological level explores the use of drugs, biofeedback, surgery, and so on, to help solve problems like epilepsy, hypertension, schizophrenia, senility, and depression. But the biological is not enough. The mind is a spiritual essence which soars away from a 3-pound lump of nerves. The mind has its own unique problems, which require their own special treatments. On this level, the intrapsychic, psychology must deal with aspects like intelligence and personality, invisible stuff leading to an imprecise science. But still, we've got to measure intelligence or personality. There are times when we must assess a person for a job or advise a person on a career. We are social beings, though, and our peers, parents, and society in general affect us beyond comprehension. But when you or I interact with someone else, we automatically have a social interaction. Social psychology embraces you, me, and everyone else. And social psychology must therefore deal with problems like crime, social discontent, changes of career, and on, with all the problems of social interaction. Put them all together, and the biological, intrapsychic, and social parts of psychology cover all of life. They give us information on every aspect of human behavior, and information is the most powerful tool for coping with reality. One such reality is adulthood. You pass your teens, and before you realize it, you're out in the world, married and raising children. Your problems absorb most of your thoughts, and you probably assume that once you reach adulthood, your feelings and thoughts will stay pretty much the same from beginning to end. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Adulthood has stages. Different stages have different worries.
You know, Chuck thinks you're really bright. I mean, he really enjoys talking to you. But, well, he said he thinks you have this little tendency to be, well, a little aggressive.
I don't know. I'm just thinking, you know, you're just so creative. I mean, the way you sew and knit and things. I'm just wondering if there's something that wouldn't be more interesting for you. But don't get me wrong. I mean, if you want to go out and get a job, that's fine. Just so long as it doesn't get to be a really big thing.
I couldn't wait till the children were in school all day and I could get out, meet people, have an exciting career. Well, I've got my career. I've been working for 8 years now, and I know I'm lucky to have such a great job. But lately I've been wondering if this is what I want to do with my life.
Hey, love, that was a great party, huh? Hey, what'd you think of Tom's new wife? Not bad, huh? I couldn't take my eyes off her all night. How old would you say she was? 25, 26? You better watch out. I might trade you in for a new model.
Now, wait a minute, damn it. You always blame everything on that. I am upset. This is really important to me, and it has nothing to do with my change of life.
Yes, in my profession, I hear questions like that all the time. And I can understand you're being concerned about your sex life. But after all, there comes a time in life when those things just aren't that important. So come on now, relax. You've got your health, and after all, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
In studying the stages of adulthood in our culture, psychology has found that our lives progress in stages which are more or less predictable. When Shakespeare tells us that all the world's a stage, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages, he's referring to this progression through life. Psychologists like Bernice Newgarten of the University of Chicago phrase Shakespeare's views objectively.
Except for the fact that all people grow up, grow old, and die. There's no one way in which people age or a person ages. There's a sequence of major life events which is common to most people. But every person goes through that in his or her own way, and each person has his own or her own pattern of growth and change. Now, there are various factors that influence that pattern: biological, psychological, sociological, and of course, historical.
The adult passage is like a run in the park. We start out young, and the motions are easy. Our times are fast, and our goals even faster. But toward the end of the 30s, reality starts to close in. We start to realize we're probably not going to reach all the goals we'd counted on.
Oh, for crying out loud.
What's the matter?
Well, the word for promotion came out today, and I've been passed over again. Well, you know, at this rate, I'm going to be 50 years old before I make it.
Well, don't worry about it.
Well, that's easy for you to say.
This can be a terrible realization. You see the truth. You are not going to reach the goals you had set. You're a failure. Your self-image is false, for no longer can you see yourself as the young Turk with all of life kneeling before you. Time has leaked from your world, and nothing can ever reclaim it. But maturation has its own rewards. Part of aging is coming to realize that the goals you set as a young adult may not work. They may lead you to an unsatisfying style of life. As you mature, your interests tend to shift away from yourself and go to those you love, to their lives and well-being. But we cannot stop. Time runs on. As it goes, it wrinkles our skin, grays our hair, slows our pace. And it continues to change our view of life. As we enter the last part of middle age, time restructures our sexual identity. No longer can we kid ourselves that the skin still glows with sensual promise, or that the hair still shines with thick, full body. For many of us, it's time to care for parents, just as they once loved and cared for us. We begin to prepare for old age, for no longer is time a matter of years since birth, but years till death. And onward we run, but there's no winning this race. Time is always faster, just a bit faster, till the end of the course, where even old age overtakes us all. Now is the time for final preparations, for coming to terms with what life has been and with what death will be. But it's also time for appreciating one's riches, basking in the love of one's family, reliving with children the stages they're just beginning to explore. In preparing us for the final years, age changes our personalities, and curiously, it changes men and women in opposite ways. David Gutman, Chief of Psychology at Northwestern University's Medical School.
For instance, we find again that men tend to move towards a stage of passive mastery, characterized by a more sort of sensual and sentimental orientation. Whereas women tend to move in a more assertive, aggressive, competitive, political direction.
But old age conjures up fears of loneliness, with husbands outlived and children gone. For many, this is a final reality. But the final years don't have to be a curse of desolation. It turns out that people often face the hardships of time much as they've faced their lives before. Those who lived timidly and ran from opportunity pull back to lonely isolation. But those who embraced life as it passed, people like old Fred Maynard, they still find life a wonderful thing.
Sometimes I get up in the early morning, just before the sun comes up, when everything's cool, and I get to thinking about the miracle of being alive. I got nothing to squawk about. I've seen the world and life, plenty of it. Still am, for that matter. That's one thing I learned, Hobo. Whatever the environment, make yourself like it. Even if you're in the jailhouse, don't be complaining all the time. They give you some grub, tell them it's the finest food you ever ate. It may be the worst. Yeah, take life as it comes. No use of crabbing about it. Make yourself like it. That way you get along good.
Not everyone has Fred's health, though, and these scenes illustrate what used to become of the helplessly aged, a terminal sentence to the total care hospital. Again, as Shakespeare observed, the last scene of all is second childness and mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. A place like this confirms his fears of aging. But the worst part is that it's so easy to dismiss these people as senile or mentally ill because at their age, who could hope for recovery?
What's the matter? What's the matter? Nothing. So be quiet.
No, ha, ha, ha. What is the ha, 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 ha,
However, psychology has given hope to the elderly. By studying the strong, positive types like Fred Maynard, psychologists have found that the spirit needs exercise. It needs touch, warmth, companionship. These simple things cure more ills than one could ever have hoped. So now the old people have an alternative to mere oblivion, the day hospital. Dr. Harry Grauer, a hospital director, explains.
The day hospital is a facility which cares for patients during the day. It's a hospital facility and allows them to return to their homes each night. It means that the patient can obtain medical, social, psychiatric care and still live in the community.
I was still in very deep depression when I started going to day hospital. But gradually I sort of began to realize there was still a world around me. And I found that I was beginning to relate to other people much better than I had for a long time.
Death, though, does come to us all. It's the final reality and the most difficult of realities to face. It ends our residence on Earth, and it grieves the friends and family around us. So psychology tries to help make the end of living a dignified time, a quiet passage free of pain and fear, and comforted by faith and courage. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has helped pioneer this psychology of mercy.
Death is something you can't experiment with, you can't experience. So we in a hospital who have to face death all the time and learn to deal with it, realize that the only way you can get the feeling of what it's like is to ask seriously ill patients themselves to be our teachers.
We never ever had to tell a patient that he had a serious illness. And you would never even dream of telling a patient he's dying anyway. But you can talk about dying. All our patients have told us that they were terminally ill and near their death. And this is irrelevant of the fact that they had been told or not told. The other thing that patients always share with us is they would have liked to be told that it's serious, but they don't like to be told there's nothing else that can be done. If they are told that it's serious, they would like to be told with a glimpse of hope.
By studying the way people prepare for death, psychologists are learning that the preparation can be a gradual process, like the journey through adulthood. It seems to have stages which many of us will pass through on our journey to the end of life. When told that fate has called our name, a man or woman will tend to deny it's true. Look at me, I'm not sick. But the truth is always there, and it grows. Then comes the rage. Why me in the prime of my life? I don't deserve this. And yet we know deep down that it is true. Perhaps if we're good, we can bargain for a little extra time. But this court gives no reprieves. Despair seeps down to the bottom of the soul.
Because I leave my wife and my family, my two lovely children, and my wife we've been together for 27 years, and I have to leave her, and she will miss me. I now that I'm in the hospital, she's home alone, and she's home alone at night. That's where I belong, and I'm not there.
Finally, we admit to ourselves the truth. Death must be accepted.
But we're going to have Marilyn. You are picking out some pieces from what?
There was one from the Messiah.
One from the Messiah. Triumphant pieces, not sentimental tear-jerkers. Triumphant pieces, and when that occurs, she's going to remember her dad as one who looks upon this moment as temporary, transient, and he's going to a better world.
Death is the natural order of things. It's the final part of living. And if psychology can reduce the fear of it, we owe the science of mind an incalculable debt of gratitude. Loss of fear can enrich our lives today. Nature spins the water and the air and the light into plants and animals and the miracles of being alive. Life is the challenge, not just to take passively, but to improve. How far can the human mind change the natural order of things? How much better can we make our lives, our surroundings? Can we make the world a better place for our children? Probably not without psychology. The task, though, is enormous, and the problems are problems of human behavior, overpopulation, poverty, violence. They're critical to the future of the world. They're another reality that psychology has got to help us face. Part of the problem is social attitudes. People of the middle class leave the inner cities. You can't blame them for wanting to enjoy clean air and neat neighborhoods. They want to escape the things they find depressing.
Stopped going to Patterson not too many years ago, actually. I still go occasionally, but somehow I don't feel very happy about it.
There are always stores with cheap merchandise, stores which the owners don't seem to care about, stores which I wouldn't shop in.
It's not that we haven't tried to solve the problem of urban decay. We've built housing projects like this example in Washington, D.C., but we've failed miserably. It turns out that people need comfort for their psyches as well as for their bodies. And the long, bleak corridors of a dormitory just don't fill our needs. The ironic fact is, many of those who were supposed to live in the new project fled back to the neighboring slums. But just because a neighborhood is poor in appearance doesn't mean it's poor in spirit. The barrio on the outskirts of Dallas has shown psychologists that simple things like flowers and small bungalows help generate a sense of neighborhood. So psychologists are now working in teams with sociologists, architects, landscape designers, and many others to nurture this community feeling. They're attempting to redevelop our rotting urban centers. They try to incorporate centers where people can meet and interact. The planning team often works with the people themselves in redesigning their community surroundings.
Now this is pretty close. the thing that we all talked about. Let's take a look at how much it costs. Can you remember, up there we calculated each of these units, each of these 1-inch squares has a monetary value. For example, the bushes were $150 and the flowers were $50.
Getting people to help themselves like this builds a sense of self-reliance and civic pride, as we can see from this neighborhood in Baltimore. Once it was wasted slums, but a social program encouraged people to rebuild it. If psychology is able to harness this kind of social behavior, it gives us great hope for the future. It means that people of all types may be able to live side by side in our cities, while still maintaining the style that marks civilized existence. There's no telling how far psychology can take us. It's a new science, much like a child at the age where he's just discovering the laws of nature. There's the same wonder mixed with boundless expectations. But like a child's hopes, our plans for psychology may or may not come to pass. It's too soon to know. This series, Understanding Human Behavior, is designed to help us in our day-by-day concerns with ourselves and other people. It's helped me. It's not only that I've enjoyed serving as your host, I've learned a great deal in the process. I hope that you have too, and that you can apply your new understanding to whatever challenges you face in the days ahead. Human beings adapt to change, but future changes may demand an even greater understanding of human behavior.